What are some of the most toxic or potentially dangerous ideas, beliefs that have been perpetuated by Redditors? We did it. Reddit. Witch hunts and doxing are okay if the average Reddit user doesn't like the target. Glorification of selfishness. I get the impression a ton of people on this site have difficulty asserting themselves, or recognizing or setting their own boundaries, because Reddit is full of advice geared toward people with these problems. What these posters seem to forget is that not everyone is codependent with self-esteem through the floor, and yet anytime anyone wants to get out of something that someone else wants them to do, Reddit leaps to no is a complete sentence. Put yourself first. Don't jade. In real life though, maintaining healthy relationships requires sometimes doing things you aren't thrilled about for others' sake. Reddit has a tendency to label people toxic and encourage relationship advice that isn't great. Reddit is very much guilty until proven innocent. They will jump straight down the throat of any alleged criminal with zero facts, zero context, and demand they be sentences to years behind bars, or worse. Hell, they don't even care if it's the right guy, just that somebody be punished. Remember when Reddit found the Boston bomber and the guy ended up killing himself? I've been downvoted to hell for the simple comment along the lines of, maybe we should wait for all the evidence to come out. We don't know the whole story. Reddit is absolutely bloodthirsty. Worshipping celebrities. 10-year-olds don't need to receive threats because he's never heard of a 55-year-old actor. Hey Reddit, why do you like Keanu so much? Because of how nice he is? Why don't you follow his example? To an extent, Reddit plays a role in the growing anti-intellectualism. There seems to be a large assumption that this is a website of experts and lengthy replies must be credible. I saw a fellow Redditor describe it perfectly. You finally realize how little most Redditors know when they start talking about a topic you happen to be well researched in. I see this in two places primarily. Topics about public education. I am a middle school teacher, and topics such as anti-vaccine. I understand Reddit hates anti-vax for good reason. But it is also stuck in the old anti-vaxxers are just stupid stereotype. Instead of educating and helping the problem, they just poke fun. This unfortunately drives more anxious parents toward anti-vax communities. A little empathy, understanding, and education would do more to combat ideologies such as anti-vaccines than anything Reddit actually does. Love yourself before you love someone else. While the intention is good, some people take that a little bit too far. Having a disability is something to accept. This should however not mean that necessary or QOL surgery should not be done. Think about the subjects that you have an immense amount of knowledge about. Maybe you've spent your whole life studying it. Now think about all the times you've seen a well-written comment on Reddit with thousands of upvotes that is completely and verifiably wrong. Now think about all the subjects you know nothing about, and all the times you've learned something from a well-written comment with thousands of upvotes. Everyone is an armchair psychologist. You post about feeling sad sometimes, and inevitably someone is like, that's because you have atypical depression and bipolar disorder or whatever. Those people who make introversion out to be an excuse for some pretty terrible antisocial, misanthropic, unacceptable behavior. I don't like loud spaces and can feel overwhelmed by crowds of people. I would pay not to go to a concert. I also genuinely love the people in my life and will always make time for anyone who needs me. In my experience, this is true for everyone, extroverts and introverts alike. One example of this: a medical doctor posts a well-written comment about the dangers of overprescribing antibiotics. Top comment of the thread: tons of awards. Later, a second-year med student posts a similar comment. Still well written, but maybe misses a few key points specifying how and why. Again, top comment of the thread: gilded to the nines. Later, a college freshman bio major writes a pretty bad summary of the situation, but it's part of the Reddit hive mind echo chamber, so anyone who bothers to correct him gets misinterpreted and downvoted. And so on until someone literally tells me they read on Reddit that taking antibiotics is dangerous and will lead to a super disease that will wipe out humanity. Come on Reddit. Am I the Arsehole used to be a great place where you could get an honest opinion on whether or not an action you took makes you an arsehole. Sometimes you still might get an honest comment or two, but the amount of times where I've seen YTA responses get removed or downvoted to oblivion, while others are screaming NTA, they shouldn't have been slightly mean to you if they didn't want to get murdered. Exaggeration, but I'm shocked half the time I look at the comments. The general belief that how an idea is presented is more important than what is being said. I can't count the number of times I've seen bullshit conjecture with clean grammar get upvoted past someone who actually knows what the they're talking about from direct experience but can't spell for shit. Too many people unknowingly assimilate into the hive mind. Like, if you start to agree with all the most upvoted posts every day, and get angry, upset when someone makes a valid point against what is clearly right, correct to Reddit, it's time to back away slowly. You'll read comments and think, wow, these people know so much about this topic, but then a topic will come up that you have expertise in, and you'll realize that people on this site just pull answers out of their ass with confidence. Also, after enough time here you'll start to realize the average demo is on the young side and has very little life experience. Keep that in mind when you scroll through the comments. If you're a mod and you don't agree with something, you can ban them. That people who use Reddit are somehow superior or more in the know about things than people who don't. Cringe Instagram normies stealing all our memes as the next 90 posts are all screen caps of Twitter posts or memes originating from 4chan. Absolutely hating on those that deviate from the norm. Hating on people that conform to society's norms but not Reddit's norms. Hating on people trying to have fun or hobbies. If your partner does anything at all that you dislike, you should dump them, take them to the police, avoid all other partners in the future, etc. etc. Particularly prevalent in relationships. Relationship advice. Am I the arsehole? And even just AskReddit itself. It's rather appalling, and it seems to be pushed by people who have no idea what being in a relationship is actually like. It's not easy basically. You want to love something and be in a completely committed relationship. Prepare to fight for it, because it is not easy. Social media bad. Emoji bad. That the optimal solution to personal relationship issues is to end it, cut contact and or leave town. Some people here don't think cats can have salami. Failure to acknowledge any nuance or gray areas. People feel the need to go all in on one side for any issue. I think they feel they'll look weak or hurt their argument by relenting on any point, or having a discussion on any point. That you can't agree to disagree. There are far too many issues, policies, beliefs and lessons that we absorb as human beings. Short of the other person being rude or hateful, Redditors as a whole don't know how to accept another view contrary to theirs. That so many Redditors are quick to condemn someone over things. For example, if someone driving does something they clearly shouldn't and cause an accident, I hope they died. If they died, good. Them. Clean the gene pool. It never occurs to people that maybe some people just shouldn't drive, but they're otherwise just fine as people. That whenever someone in your life isn't behaving perfectly or 100% supporting of you all the freaking time, you need to cut them out of your life because they are abusive and toxic. I'm curious how many families have been ruined by such destructive advice. That the only answer to any kind of relationship problem is to immediately break up, even if it's a problem that could easily be solved with a simple conversation between partners. That pretty much anything is an acceptable receptacle for cum. That everything works like a dichotomy. The amount of needless contempt that arises just because of an incessant need to turn issues into right versus left or the likes is stupid. I see people back up harmful beliefs just because it's what the majority of their opposition opposes. I'm not saying that I'm above any form of tribalism or that certain issues aren't more attributed to one side than the other, but people just need to stop prioritizing political identity over the argument at hand. Hating an entire nation, or assuming that all its citizens are equally as bad just because a certain individual, or a specific group of people in power who belongs to that nation are jerks. That if a person on Reddit doesn't agree with you and starts having an argument, conversation, they start acting like they are psychologists and act like they know you. The most toxic thing is Reddit tries to break people apart, especially family. I have seen way often that the first course of action and the most popular one are of separation, man from wife or vice versa, or rift between parent-child. My argument is not that this is not necessary sometimes, but in most cases I don't think this should be first course of action. A kind of maturity and level-headedness is lost on most Redditors. And this is especially not helpful when the recipient of advice is some 15-year-old girl. I find this to be true everywhere, but the idea that if someone holds a different opinion to you they are automatically stupid, especially when it comes to politics. Many topics are much more intricate than the average Joe realizes, and people are in comments getting absolutely furious instead of having reasonable discussions. Equating introversion with being socially awkward, having social anxiety, or just being downright antisocial. Many Redditors brand themselves as introverts and then use it as an excuse to feel superior over others while refusing to work on their own shitty social skills. Usually the biggest giveaway is that they introduce themselves as an introvert, and want you to be very, very clear about that fact. Fetishization of mental illness. So many posts that reach the front page talking about depression, anxiety and even suicide. Look, I get it's tough. I've been there myself. But it seems like people on this site are more content to stew in their own misery and blame society for not taking their problems seriously, rather than getting serious help or doing something about it. I mean, how in the hell are other people supposed to take your issues seriously when even you won't? Generally, the hate on teenage girls, or anyone who like popular things. It's so idiotic. Teenage girl can't have depression because she's being quirky. Teenage girl likes conventionally popular thing. She's a basic bitch. Teenage girl is above average looking. She's a thought. Teenage girl complains about problem. Her problems aren't real and she's asking for attention. Teenage girls cannot possibly have it bad. Everyone believes teenage girls straight up with absolutely no doubt. I got downvoted a while back for telling people not to teach kids to do a rear naked choke hold, i.e. blood choke, if you do it wrong, which is very likely for a kid due to how small their arms are. You will literally kill the person. I taught karate for 7 years and this was something we took very seriously, and yet a few armchair martial artists wrote a long-winded reply that made no sense and got me downvoted to oblivion. Talking about things they're completely uninformed about as though the facts, and subsequently misinforming thousands of people without any disclaimer of their lack of knowledge. The amount of times people correct me on topics I actually know things about with false information, only to have me downvoted and am praised for their witty and factually incorrect comeback is astonishing.